gold beneath the late afternoon sun. The range at Fort Bragg hums with noise, rifle bolts snapping, steel targets ringing, the restless murmur of recruits who haven't yet learned silence. Among the rows of sweating uniforms and barking sergeants, one figure moves differently. Slender, quiet, focused. Sergeant Leah Monroe walks the line with her hood drawn low, clipboard in one hand, range key in the other. The air around her seems to bend, not from authority, but from stillness. The kind of silence that follows people who've already seen too much. A faint trail of black ink runs along her neck, small, exact numbers tattooed into the skin. Coordinates. The recruits notice. They whisper. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Whispered Logs so you never miss these true tales of courage. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Hey, check that. Numbers? GPS or something? Probably just random ink. Nah, those are grid marks. You think she's... They stop when Monroe glances their way. Not a glare, just a look. But it's enough. At the far end of the line, Lieutenant Harrison adjusts his cap, pretending not to notice the murmurs. He's young, clean, proud of his new command. The kind of officer who reads doctrine like scripture and believes rank equals respect. He steps forward, voice raised above the gunfire. All right, eyes front. Today's focus is trigger discipline and reaction time. I want full groups under 15 seconds. The recruits nod, some fumbling with rifles, others smirking. Monroe moves between them, correcting stances, adjusting elbows, her voice low and exact. Check your sight alignment. Don't slap the trigger. Control the breathing, not the recoil. Harrison watches her and doesn't like how easily they listen. An hour passes. The air grows heavier. Spent shells glitter like gold dust under the sun. One recruit, Private Ellis, keeps missing his target. Rounds hitting dirt, not steel. Harrison sighs, steps forward. Monroe, let's see how you handle this one. She pauses, calm. Yes, sir. He gestures at the rifle. Show them how it's done. The crowd quiets. Monroe takes the weapon, inspects it once, then drops into firing stance. Left foot forward, eyes steady downrange. The moment stretches thin. Then, crack, a single shot. The steel target rings at 200 meters, another. Crack, the second plate topples. A third, and the metal shatters clean down the center. Breath wasted, no recoil correction, just motion. Mechanical. Perfect. For a second, no one moves. Then whispers ripple down the line. 3 hits. 3 shots. Who is she? No way she learned that here. Harrison folds his arms, forcing a smirk. Nice shooting, Sergeant. Didn't know logistics trained snipers. Monroe unloads the rifle, slides the magazine clear, and hands it back. Her tone stays even. Every soldier should know how to defend their post, sir. Something in the way she says it makes even the recruits go quiet. Later in the armory, the whispers grow teeth. They say she's not really stationed here. They say she came from somewhere deeper, black files, erased missions, things people don't put on paper. Someone finds her old service photo online, or claims to. The image is blurry, the details redacted. But one thing stands out, the same tattooed coordinates. By evening, everyone knows. Harrison tries to ignore it, but it festers. Pride can't stand mystery. And Leah Monroe, calm, unreadable, is the kind of mystery that makes people nervous. So the next morning he sets a test. The recruits assemble before dawn. Cold mist over red clay. The air smells like oil and gunpowder. Harrison stands before them, clipboard in hand. Today we're running endurance and engagement drills. Sergeant Monroe will demonstrate since she seems to have a fan club. Laughter rolls through the ranks, thin and uneasy. Monroe says nothing. She steps forward, adjusts her gloves, and checks her rifle. Course starts at that ridge, Harrison continues. 5 targets, variable range, full sprint between each. 15 rounds. Time limit 3 minutes. He smirks. Show them how the pros do it, Sergeant. She nods once. No bravado, no speech. Just action. Ready. The timer starts. Beep. Monroe explodes off the line. Boots pounding mud, breath sharp, eyes fixed. The recruits watch, silent. At the first post, crack, crack, crack. 3 targets down. She moves, low, fast, controlled chaos. By the 4th station, her uniform streaked with mud. Sweat slides down her temple, mixing with Carolina clay. Final station, 250 meters. 1 breath, 1 shot. The target falls. Timer stops, 2:28. No one cheers. They just stare. Harrison clears his throat. Well, that was efficient. Monroe unloads, clears the chamber, and nods. Request permission to check recruits grouping, sir? Granted, he says, but his jaw is tight. She walks the line, quiet, observing. When she stops behind Ellis, the same recruit who struggled before, she kneels, adjusts his grip, and whispers, "Don't fight the rifle, let it move with you." He nods, tries again. This time his shot hits steel. The small sound echoes louder than applause. That night, the barracks hum with stories. 228, that's faster than most Spec Ops runs. Those coordinates on her neck? Bet they mark some classified site. She moves like she's done this in real combat. Somewhere a rumor changes tone. Someone calls her the Ghost of Bragg, and by morning, the name sticks. Fort Bragg has seen its share of legends. Soldiers whose names echo through the halls, stories carved into the walls of the mess hall, half true, half myth. But Leah Monroe isn't like them. She doesn't speak about war, doesn't mention where she served, doesn't react when others boast about deployments. She just listens, that calm, steady look, like she's watching ghosts only she can see. Harrison notices, and it eats at him. So when command announces an inspection visit from Admiral Porter, Harrison sees his chance. If Monroe's some kind of secret, he'll expose it. The day arrives under a hard, clear sky. The range is spotless, rifles lined like parade pieces, recruits standing rigid. Harrison runs last-minute checks, adrenaline masking insecurity. Then the black SUV pulls up. Doors open. Admiral Jonathan Porter steps out, silver hair, uniform immaculate, eyes cold. The kind of man who carries entire wars in silence. Harrison salutes. "Sir, Fort Bragg 12th Division reporting ready, sir." Porter nods, scanning the field. His gaze pauses when he sees Monroe, cleaning a rifle near the far bench. His posture stiffens. "Who's that?" "Sergeant Leah Monroe, sir," Harrison says quickly. "Transferred from logistics. Impressive field results, but unconventional." The Admiral doesn't reply, he just stares. Then quietly, "She's still alive." Harrison blinks. "Sir?" Porter shakes his head, turning away. "Carry on." The inspection runs smooth until the live-fire demo. Harrison calls Monroe forward again, pretending it's protocol. Sergeant Monroe will demonstrate combat marksmanship for the Admiral. She looks at him once, the faintest flicker of something behind her eyes, but steps forward anyway. Porter watches, unmoving. Monroe checks the rifle, loads, breathes once, fires. 5 targets drop in perfect sequence, head, chest, knee, head. A rhythm too exact to be random. Porter closes his eyes for a second, then opens them slowly. "Fallujah," he says quietly. Same pattern. The words hang in the air, every recruit stops. Harrison lowers his clipboard. Monroe's hand tightens on the rifle grip. She says nothing. Porter steps closer, voice low but firm. "Sergeant Leah Monroe, confirmed 42 engagements in 3 days. Held her post after her entire unit was taken out. You were 23. The silence that follows is alive. Harrison feels his stomach drop. The recruits exchange glances. Realization dawning, Monroe finally speaks. "That's old history, Admiral." Porter studies her, face unreadable. Some history deserves witnesses. Monroe locks the weapon, clears it, and sets it down. Her voice stays even. "I didn't come here for witnesses, sir. I came to teach." She turns to the recruits. "Lesson's over. Clean your gear," and without another word, she walks away. Night falls over Fort Bragg. The training fields lie quiet, the hum of crickets rising under the floodlights. Harrison sits alone in his office, replaying everything. The name, the tone in Porter's voice. He searches her file again. Classified lines, blacked out sections. No photo, no service record before 2004. Just a short note at the bottom. Cleared for reassignment. Behavioral status, stable. Recommend limited visibility. He leans back in his chair, unease sinking deep. Outside, down the long gravel path, Monroe walks toward the storage shed. Her silhouette fades against the orange lamps, quiet, solitary. The Ghost of Bragg moves like a shadow between worlds. And tomorrow, she'll stand before the same recruits again, teaching them how to shoot straight and how to live with what happens when they do. The Carolina night presses heavy over Fort Bragg, air damp and electric. Only the distant hum of generators and the occasional bark of a guard dog break the stillness. Sergeant Leah Monroe moves along the gravel path to the storage shed. Her boots make no sound, a predator accustomed to the rhythm of quiet. The shadows stretch long against the lamp-lit walls, but she walks straight, eyes forward. Inside the shed, rifles gleam under the weak light. She checks each one with precision, touches every barrel, magazine, and trigger. Familiar ritual, old habit. One rifle in particular catches her eye, its serial number scratched off, its stock worn. She lifts it, feels the weight, a ghost from another war. She remembers the field, the chaos, the screams. The moment she realized that survival wasn't just about skill, it was about control. Control of self, control of fear. Control of the story that followed you home. And tonight, that story waits. Morning breaks with the clang of the mess hall bell. Recruits pour in, tired, murmuring about the night's rain and the mud caked to their boots. Harrison, bleary-eyed, is already inspecting the line. Porter's visit yesterday has left a residue of tension, the kind you can taste in the coffee. Monroe arrives last, hood low, her presence commanding without demanding. The recruits glance sideways, remembering the day before. Whispers float, the ghost's back. She didn't even look at us yesterday. Porter's SUV sits in the parking lot again. Another inspection, another chance to see the ghost in motion. Harrison forces a polite salute, but his stomach twists. He knows Monroe isn't just another soldier. Porter steps out, eyes cold, focused, unyielding. "Sergeant Monroe?" His voice is low, almost conversational, but layered with unspoken authority. "Admiral Porter, sir." No handshake, no acknowledgement of past glories. Monroe's tone is clipped but steady, like the edge of a knife. Porter looks past her at the recruits. "Prepare the engagement course," he says. Then, quieter, "History repeats itself here. Let's see if it can be controlled." Harrison frowns. "Sir?" Porter doesn't answer. The engagement course stretches over red clay hills and wooded terrain. 5 targets, variable distances, obstacles thrown in. Harrison checks the stopwatches, trying to predict her pace. The recruits ready their rifles, glancing at Monroe like a group of children trying to anticipate lightning. She moves first. Boots pound the wet earth, breath even, eyes sharp, every movement precise. Target 1 falls, headshot. Target 2, chest. Target 3, knee. Harrison notes the speed, the fluidity, the control. He realizes reluctantly that she is not teaching, she is performing. A demonstration of memory, muscle, and something older. Porter watches quietly, lips thin. Then with startling calm, "Fallujah. Same sequence, same timing. You survived it differently, but your rhythm never left you." Harrison blinks. The recruits freeze. Only Monroe continues, hitting the final 2 targets in perfect sequence, timing flawless, as if the ghosts of the past guide her hands. The course ends. Silence. Porter walks forward, boots silent on wet soil. He stops beside Monroe, examining her face. "You've carried this war longer than most live. You've taught it, repeated it, worn it, but you're still here." Monroe meets his gaze unflinching. "I survived because I must, sir, not for medals or recognition." Porter nods slowly. Survival isn't the lesson, witnessing is. The recruits finally exhale, their nerves release like air from a punctured balloon. Some smile, others frown, realizing how little they know about the woman who teaches them. Harrison feels both awe and fear. He knows he's dealing with something beyond doctrine, beyond regulation. Even Porter seems to weigh his next words carefully. "You'll be reassigned," he says quietly, "but not away from here. The next generation needs to see what efficiency and discipline look like." Monroe tilts her head. "And the past? Never forgotten," Porter replies. "Then I'm ready," she says. Later, in the dimly lit barracks, Monroe packs her gear. She pauses at her bunk, fingers brushing the coordinates tattooed on her neck. Each number a memory. Each memory a reminder of lives that didn't survive. The door opens. Harrison steps in, hesitance written all over his posture. "Sergeant Monroe, about today." She doesn't look up. "You doubted me yesterday." "I didn't understand," he admits. Her voice is quiet, firm. "Understanding is irrelevant, action is." He swallows, glancing at the rifle she cleaned, the perfect rows of gear. "You teach like you've been through hell." "Because I have," she says, no apology, no explanation. Harrison nods, stunned into silence. Night falls again. The camp is quiet. The sound of a distant radio hums under the trees. Monroe walks the perimeter alone, rifle in hand. Her eyes scan the darkness, alert, calm. A voice crackles over the radio. "Harrison. Sergeant Monroe, there's a situation. Command wants you on the northern perimeter." She doesn't hesitate. Boots pounding, she moves. A storm of wind and rain rises, masking her approach. When she arrives, the northern perimeter is a mess. Simulated targets knocked over, alarms triggered, shadows moving too fast. Training exercise or real threat? No one knows. Monroe doesn't ask. She drops into position, breathes, assesses, then moves. In minutes, the field is secured, the recruits shaken. Harrison exhaling relief. Monroe standing, rain streaking her face, muddy uniform clinging, still silent. Porter arrives shortly after, watching her work without a word. He finally nods. Ghosts can't teach fear, only respect. You've taught both. Monroe wipes rain from her eyes. I don't teach ghosts, sir, only soldiers. The following morning, Monroe stands before the recruits once more, each one sharper, faster, steadier. They don't speak of yesterday's display, but they remember. Porter watches from the shadows, clipboard in hand. Harrison beside him, hands clenched. Monroe's voice rings out, calm, precise. Every shot you take has a consequence. Every decision you make echoes further than you see. Train for both. And with that, she moves down the line, adjusting grips, correcting stances, guiding. Her presence is a lesson all on its own, a memory of the past, the discipline of the present, and the silent promise of the future. No one applauds. No one calls her name. But they listen. The ghost of Bragg has done her work. Night falls, quiet and unbroken. Monroe returns to her small office. She removes her jacket, loosens the straps of her boots, coordinates traced on her neck, fingers lingering. Outside, the stars are obscured by clouds. She sits at her desk reviewing mission logs. Not for command, not for recognition, but to remember who survived and who didn't. A final note is scribbled, black ink on lined paper. Teach them, keep them alive. Ghosts do not linger forever. She closes the folder. Darkness outside presses in. Yet inside, Monroe is steady, calm, ready. Fort Bragg sleeps, but its ghost walks. The recruits will remember her. Harrison will remember her. Porter will remember her. And when the next generation steps onto the range, they will know. Efficiency, precision, discipline, and courage are never taught with words alone. They are taught by the ghost of Bragg. The morning fog clung to the edges of Fort Mason like a thin veil, the chill settling deep into the bones of every recruit lining the parade ground. Evelyn Shaw stood at attention, perfectly still, eyes scanning the field as Sergeant Blake Carson barked final orders for the day's exercises. Her calm was a constant, unshakable presence amidst the nervous energy of the newcomers. She moved with a rhythm that was almost imperceptible, yet everything around her seemed to adjust to it, like the calm center of a storm. Blake's clipboard clicked under his grip, notes scrawled half-legibly in the margins, but his gaze never left her. The recruits shuffled, fidgeted, whispered among themselves. "Did you see how she handled that rope climb yesterday?" one muttered. "I've never seen anyone move like that." Another laughed nervously. "She's either a machine or lying about being new." Evelyn adjusted the strap of her pack, boots clicking softly against the wet gravel, ignoring the comments. She had learned long ago that presence alone commanded attention. Words were often unnecessary. Blake cleared his throat, a sharp sound that cut through the murmurs. "Squad Delta, assemble at the obstacle course," he ordered. "I want precision, no excuses." The group snapped into line, but Blake's eyes immediately sought Evelyn. She didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. Every motion was deliberate, every step calculated. He had tried to push her, to find a crack, some sign of weakness, but each attempt had only reinforced the growing unease gnawing at him. The obstacle course stretched ahead, mud-soaked, slick with overnight rain. Wooden walls loomed, ropes dangled like serpents, and the scent of damp earth mingled with the metallic tang of worn weapons from the armory nearby. Blake had set up the course to test endurance, balance, and response under pressure, but Evelyn's approach was almost serene. She read the terrain like a blueprint, every grip, every foothold evaluated in microseconds before she acted. "Move!" Blake shouted, the sound bouncing off the nearby hangars. Recruits hesitated, slipping on mud, grunting with effort. Evelyn moved with quiet efficiency, helping one recruit steady himself on the first wall. "Use your legs, not just your arms," she instructed softly. No mockery, no judgment, only guidance. The recruit's eyes widened as he followed her directions, and Blake watched the small interaction, tension tightening his jaw. This was no ordinary trainee. By midday, the sun had burned off the fog, leaving pools of sunlight reflecting off puddles in the dirt. Sweat ran down faces, uniforms clung to tired bodies, yet Evelyn remained composed. Blake had already doubled her reps on several walls, forcing her into exhaustion to see if she would falter. She hadn't, not once, and when she had landed back on solid ground, she simply waited, breathing evenly, scanning the course, eyes never betraying fatigue. It was during the tactical simulation that Blake began to feel something he couldn't easily dismiss. Smoke grenades hissed, alarms screamed, and the recruits panicked, scrambling over each other. Evelyn moved through the chaos like she belonged in the middle of a seasoned unit, issuing calm, precise directions. Cover left. Sweep the sector. 3 steps. Move. Her voice was quiet, yet absolute. The team followed her rhythm, unaware they were being guided. Blake gritted his teeth. He had trained dozens of recruits, seen countless performances, but this level of command from someone supposedly inexperienced was impossible. And yet here it was, evidence in motion. He scribbled notes furiously, but his mind kept returning to the same unsettling realization. She wasn't reacting to fear, she was anticipating it. By late afternoon, the field was quiet again. Recruits collapsed onto the grass, heaving for breath. Evelyn stood alone, checking the straps on her gear, her movements meticulous. Blake approached, stepping carefully across the trampled earth. "Shaw," he said quietly, not wanting the others to hear. How are you doing this?" She looked up at him, eyes clear, calm. "Doing what, Sergeant?" she asked. There was no arrogance, no hidden satisfaction, just measured inquiry. "Leading," he admitted, voice tight, "even when you're not supposed to. Giving orders, correcting others, controlling the chaos. You're not supposed to know how." Her lips curved slightly. "I'm observing," she said softly, "and teaching where it matters. You've seen it in others too, haven't you? The ones who think they belong but crumble under pressure? I wanted to see if you noticed them." Blake exhaled sharply. He wanted to argue, to prove himself, but words failed him. Observing and guiding, the tone was too practiced, too natural. The morning air at Fort Mason bit sharply at exposed skin, the kind of cold that made lungs ache and teeth chatter. A thin fog hovered over the training field, silver threads weaving between the rows of recruits who shifted nervously in formation. Boots scuffed against damp gravel, leaving faint prints that would vanish by the afternoon sun. The smell of mud, oil, sweat, and adrenaline hung heavy, a scent every soldier remembered from their first day. It was the smell of challenge, of expectations, of bodies and wills being tested from the moment they set foot on base. Sergeant Blake Carson moved between the lines with a calculated intensity, his square jaw clenched against the early chill, his eyes scanning every twitch, every misstep, every nervous glance. In his hand, he carried a small pepper spray canister, part of the base's stress response assessment, designed to measure composure under sudden, uncomfortable pressure. Most rookies wouldn't even see it coming. Most would flinch, cough, stumble, maybe mutter a curse under their breath. Then he stopped. The moment he set his gaze on one particular recruit, the fog seemed to thicken, or perhaps it was just the way the sunlight struck her uniform, casting a faint halo over the neat rows of fabric and gear. The woman's uniform was pristine, pressed so sharply it could have cut glass. Her posture was exact, shoulders square, head level, every movement purposeful. Her eyes were calm, unnervingly so, as though she had stepped out of a place where nerves were optional. She didn't fidget, she didn't glance around, she simply stood. Carson's hand twitched, and on impulse, he flicked the canister open, sending a fine mist of spray toward her face. A green haze, bitter and biting, curled in the air. Most rookies would have coughed, blinked, stumbled. Some might have even howled in irritation. She didn't. She blinked once, steady as stone. The mist rolled around her without causing her to falter. A whisper ran through the line. "Robot rookie." Another muttered, half laughing, "She's part machine, probably." Carson's grin tightened. "We'll see how tough you really are," he thought. He had no idea who she was. Not yet. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Whispered Logs so you never miss these true tales of courage, and share in the comments where you're watching from today. The fog burned off gradually, leaving the field glimmering under the weak morning sun. The recruits were called to formation, names shouted one after another. When the call came for Shaw Evelyn, she stepped forward. Her motion was crisp, precise, and almost ritualistic. Every eye followed her. There was a slight ripple of surprise, a quiet murmur passing through the group. Her salute was sharp, exact, performed with the precision of someone who had drilled it countless times. Not a single error, not a single hesitation. Carson noted it, silently skeptical. Confidence like that could be learned. Arrogance was a shield. He had seen both. Her uniform gleamed, boots polished, sleeves perfectly aligned, straps tightened without any sloppiness. Real soldiers carried the subtle wear of discipline. Dirt smudges, frayed hems, the silent testimony of long hours spent in the field. This one looked too clean, too composed, like a photograph of military perfection come to life. Yet there was something in her stillness, an absence of nervousness that hinted at discipline beyond what most recruits could manage. As the morning stretched on, whispers circulated among the recruits. "Probably some officer's niece," one muttered. "Look at her, she's scared to sweat," joked another. Laughter trailed in waves, punctuated by pointed glances. She didn't respond. She simply adjusted her pack strap, her eyes forward, absorbing everything without reacting. Carson's instincts screamed that this wasn't arrogance masquerading as composure. This was control, earned over time. But he dismissed it, convincing himself he'd seen similar acts before, recruits who had spent weeks rehearsing confidence, waiting for the first sign of weakness to crumble. The gear issue station revealed more. Carson watched her handle every item with meticulous attention. Rifles slung, straps adjusted, buckles checked. She worked silently, efficiently, with the rhythm of someone who had done this 1,000 times. Not for display, not to impress, just because it had to be done right. That night, as recruits prepared bunks in the dim glow of the barracks, Carson observed her through the window. Most recruits laughed, swapped stories, complained of sore backs and blisters. She sat on her lower bunk, cleaning gear with steady, practiced hands. Her face betrayed no emotion, no fatigue, just focus. Carson shook his head. "Too clean, too calm," he muttered. "She's hiding something." Even in hallways, small moments gnawed at his instincts. A corporal tried to provoke her with a comment about yearbook photos. She gave a polite nod, almost imperceptibly smiling at the edges of her mouth. A simple reaction, yet it unsettled him more than defiance ever could. Her pivots during formation were precise, her voice carried subtle authority, and she corrected other recruits' stances with calm expertise. "If you square your shoulders before the climb, your balance holds," she instructed once. The recruit blinked, confused. "How would you know that?" She merely smiled lightly. "Just trust me." Every action, every glance whispered a story she refused to tell. Carson couldn't see the truth, couldn't yet fathom it. Evelyn Shaw was no ordinary recruit. She was the architect of the very training programs she now participated in, a Pentagon-appointed evaluator, undercover as a civilian, sent to witness the system in action, to see how it treated those it believed were insignificant. Her silence, her composure, her refusal to react, it was all deliberate. Let them underestimate her. Let them talk. That was the point. By dusk, the training field emptied. Carson lingered, watching her across the grounds as she polished her canteen in the fading light. For a moment she looked up, meeting his eyes across the empty yard. No words, just stillness, recognition, a silent exchange. He couldn't explain it, but the weight of her calm gnawed at him. Tomorrow, he promised himself, he'd push harder. Yet even in that thought, he felt the unease of anticipation. No matter what he tried, her composure might remain unbroken. By the third day, it became clear who Carson's primary focus had become. Evelyn was singled out constantly. Push-ups, extra laps, harsher corrections. It became predictable to everyone but her. She met every challenge without complaint. Each exhaustion drill left her composed, nodding quietly as she completed the tasks, her voice soft, firm. "Permission to continue, Sergeant." Her calm was infuriating. Every recruit cracked under the pressure. She seemed untouchable. The gas chamber exercise proved it further. The thick, choking haze made most recruits stumble, cough, and cry. Evelyn walked through it with measured breaths, shoulders square, eyes forward. When others staggered out, she followed last, unflinching. Her composure wasn't learned in days. It was forged over years. That night, Carson sat alone, examining her file. Just a name, a birthday, a signature. Nothing else. He leaned back, arms crossed, muttering, "Who are you, Shaw?" Outside, rain tapped the tin roof, and he caught sight of her silhouette on night watch. Perfect posture, unobserved yet commanding. Morning brought a sharper edge. Carson pushed harder, faster, harsher. Obstacle courses, rope climbs, sprint crawls, all performed flawlessly by Evelyn. She offered no smirks, no triumph, only quiet, deliberate execution. During question drills, she answered advanced protocol questions instantly, factual, precise. Recruits laughed, assuming she was joking. Carson, however, felt the gnawing realization. She wasn't new. She had experience far beyond this base. When live simulations began, chaos erupted. Smoke grenades, alarms, sounds of confusion. Recruits faltered. Evelyn did not. She guided, instructed, controlled. Hands on dummies, correcting teammates, pacing squads with calm authority. Carson watched, pulse racing. She commanded obedience without shouting, anticipated panic, controlled fear with words alone. Observers behind the control glass muttered, noting her leadership as beyond a rookie's level. By the end of the exercises, Carson noticed the subtle mark, a faded Navy insignia on her wristband, almost invisible under sunlight. Recognition struck like a cold punch. This wasn't a test. He wasn't testing her. He was in someone else's evaluation, and she had been observing him. "We'll see how tough you really are," he remembered saying, and now the words echoed back in bitter irony.